Easter eggs. They're colourful and made of chocolate. According to 2022 data, on average, Australians spend an estimated $1.5 billion on Easter foods each year, and that includes hot cross buns, chocolate rabbits, and of course, Easter eggs. But why? Well, Easter is the Christian celebration of the resurrection of Jesus. So where did all these chocolates come from? What's the deal with Easter eggs? Today, we're going to look into the ancient tradition that is Easter eggs. Where do we even start with this? Well, we could start with eggs, decorated ones specifically. Eggs have been used as symbols of new life and fertility across many cultures in many different countries throughout history. Easter eggs, surprisingly then, aren't unique in this sense. Multiple ancient cultures decorated eggs around springtime. Springtime, of course, is when folks in the Northern Hemisphere celebrate Easter, around April or late March, which is autumn down here in the Southern Hemisphere, so a lot of the traditions are related to spring, which doesn't really make sense here in Australia, but that's not the point. The point is that many cultures all over the planet view eggs as having special symbolic meaning. Some pagan religions viewed the sky and the earth, making two hemispheres that form an egg. Ancient Egyptians viewed the egg as a kind of fulcrum where the four elements meet in one point, the elements being water, earth, fire, air. And there are lots of ancient people groups who decorated eggs. There's archaeological evidence of artistically decorated ostrich eggs from about 60,000 years ago in what is now modern South Africa. These eggs had intentional designs etched into their shells 60,000 years ago. That's pretty cool. And many cultures had egg giving as a part of their springtime traditions. When the spring began, you gave eggs. But where do we get these things that we currently know as Easter eggs from? Why have they become this Christian tradition? Well, you won't find the reference to Easter eggs in the Bible, nor will you find the term Easter, but more on that in a minute. Early Christians, and I'm talking about in the first centuries AD, celebrated the resurrection of Jesus around the time of the spring equinox. It coincides with the Jewish Passover festival, which is when Christians believe that Jesus was crucified and then resurrected 3 days later. Some Christians tied these celebrations directly to Passover, which fell on the 14th day of the Jewish month Nisan, meaning that Easter could happen on different days of the week, year to year. It was decided by Emperor Constantine and a gathering of Christian leaders back in 325 AD that the day to commemorate Jesus' death was on the Friday and the resurrection on the Sunday, which was the day that people believed that people found Jesus' empty tomb. This is why the date of Easter moves around each year. Easter Sunday is the first Sunday after the first full moon after the spring equinox. The lunar month doesn't work very well with our solar calendar, which is why sometimes Easter is in April and sometimes it's in late March. But what does that have to do with eggs? Early Christians included eggs in their celebration of Jesus' resurrection, and in some Christian tradition, the egg is a symbol of new life and rebirth, similar to many non-Christian traditions. But in Christian traditions, the eggshell represents a tomb which inside contains life, or something is missing from there that is alive. So like once a chick exits an egg, it leaves an empty shell or an empty tomb. Early Christians in Mesopotamia used onions and beetroot to dye the eggs red, a symbol of Jesus' blood. And some even etched designs into their eggs. But there was no chocolate because cacao, the bean that chocolate is made of, is native to South America, and the Columbian exchange wouldn't happen for another millennia and a half. And these eggs in Mesopotamia wouldn't have been called Easter eggs because Easter is an English word. Eventually, Christianity made its way to England in the 6th century AD, and the early Christians would have probably celebrated the resurrection of Jesus with eggs as they had done in other places. The pagans living in England also had eggs during their springtime feasts, where they celebrated their goddess, Ostra, the goddess of fertility, humans, and crops. The converts to Christianity just kind of continued these traditions, and this is actually where we get the name Easter from. It was also the pagans who had brightly coloured eggs with floral designs to celebrate the beginning of spring. And the Christians at the time had their eggs to celebrate Jesus' resurrection, so they just kind of merged them. I'm not going to get into Easter bunnies, but they also come from the festival of Ostra, but that's for another video for another time. So the Christian feast became known as Easter, and the eggs became Easter eggs after the pagan goddess who was celebrated at the time. But as Christianity became the main religion over England over the coming centuries, the pagan roots were forgotten and the new Easter tradition was established. Still no chocolate. Decorating eggs just kind of became a thing. In 1290, King Edward in England commissioned 450 eggs to be decorated with gold leaf and given out to those in his court, and this tradition spread across Europe. Louis XIV in France had ostrich eggs decorated by his goldsmith, and in 1883, Tsar Alexander in Russia had Peter Carl Fabergé create eggs as gifts, which became known as Fabergé eggs. Only about 50 of these were made, and they are extremely fine and extremely valuable. The most expensive Fabergé eggs have been estimated to have a value of over $30 million US. But when did Easter eggs get chocolatey? It's unclear when the first chocolate egg was made. It might have been Louis XIV in France who had his cooks fill an ostrich egg with chocolate in the early 18th century. Dutch and German chocolate makers probably made the first fully chocolate eggs in the early 19th century, but the first widely available chocolate eggs were made by J.S. Fry & Sons in 1873, followed by John Cadbury in 1875, and the rest, I suppose, is history. Chocolate eggs have become a staple of Easter festivities in Western culture. This is my favourite way to do Easter eggs. I'm going to unpeel this one. I've heated some milk. I'm going to pop this into the mug and gently pour milk over it. It'll need a good stir as well. It's a lot of chocolate at the bottom. You can add a second one if you want it stronger, and just wait for it to melt. There it is. Boom. Easter egg hot chocolate. It's good. There we have it. I hope I've given you an answer to our question, what's the deal with Easter eggs? As always, writing about history is hard, and I couldn't cover everything in this video, but if you want to go deeper, feel free to check out the sources in the description below. If you have any questions or requests for future videos, please leave them in the comments below. And if you've enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to That's Pretty Cool, where I make videos that capture my sense of curiosity and wonder. Thanks heaps for watching, take care, stay curious, happy Easter, and I'll see you next time.